So I'm here with Hedy Hurban and Kaz Rahman, who are the costume designer and visuals designer for the opera Lampedusa.
Thank you. Yeah, nice to be here. Just to introduce myself, originally from Canada, but lived in India, the US, and Istanbul, Turkey. I've been in Plymouth for about 3 years now, filmmaker and visual artist.
And I'm also from Canada, and I'm a costume designer, composer of music, and a postgraduate researcher here at University of Plymouth.
Tell me about your approach to the costume design in Lampedusa.
There have been several iterations and interpretations of Shakespeare's The Tempest on stage. And after observing a lot of the different costumes that I've seen, many of them portray the main characters, Sycorax and Caliban, as strange looking or even ugly. And really what I wanted to do was bring out something more unique and contemporary and create more of a fashion or avant-garde interpretation of these characters. So I wanted them to look, Caliban is this half fish, half human creature, for example. So I was interested in sourcing textiles that reflected this sort of sea creature thing. When I got the fabrics, I wanted to manipulate the fabric so that it looked as though he'd come out of the sea, but in a very more of a flamboyant way. So not like an ugly, horrendous creature. He's actually beautiful and very colorful. So along with Kaz's visual design, I want to make the costumes sort of speak for themselves. So for example, Sycorax's costume, being that she's a witch and many times portrayed as this very outlandish character with lots of makeup. Because Lampedusa is more of a surreal interpretation of The Tempest, I wanted to create some kind of mystical, magical quality to her clothing. And also, as the opera plays out, the costumes evolve as the characters evolve. And so I wanted to bring out this very visual element in the costumes themselves to reflect what's going on in the background.
How did yours and ICCMR's research influence the costume design?
Well, for the last year, I've spent quite a bit of time researching textiles from Turkey, and specifically, I was looking at the Ottoman Turkish costume. And so the fabrics were sourced in Turkey. And I wanted to bring out this very beautiful texture in the costumes, which is something that's part of my research. And also, Ariel's costume will be implemented with some technology that we're thinking to combine the fabrics with some embedded sensors and conductive thread. So this will be an interesting leap from my research to doing something that kind of highlights this idea of combining fashion and technology. So this is something that I'm interested in researching going forward. And this is a chance to showcase it in front of an audience to see how it works, how the audience responds to it, and how it could be used in new performance practices such as opera or theater.
What do you think about the story and the fact that it is sung in an invented language?
The fact that it's set before the play, The Tempest, and it's a fictionalized account on that story is, it gives me a lot of leeway in terms of the visual design. The language also, because it's an invented language, it gives me a lot of leeway to come up with things. And one of the first things I came up with was this kind of dreamlike interpretation, but also playing with time. So instead of the visuals kind of fixating the time the performers are in, or putting too specific a time and place to it. I've tried to take the other approach where it's kind of opening things up, so we're not quite sure what's before, what's after, what's in the past, what's in the future, what's in the present. Of course, using creatures, fish, birds, animated elements, this all helps that. Also, there's a lot of layers to the visuals, so a lot of overlays, I guess we can say, with the projection. So using the medium of projection and then taking it a few steps further with multiple overlays of video, animation, movement of animated figures, the costumes in the foreground and the performers in the foreground. All of it plays with the time.
And this is something that we discussed visually, was this element of layering. So, I mean, the projections will also be on the costumes themselves. So there'll be like all different kinds of layers in the background, the foreground, middle ground, and on the costumes, which is something that we've been experimenting with.
Why do you find it exciting to work in the opera?
I think for me it's a chance to contribute something visually in terms of the costumes, something that's unique and different. I mean, I've seen many operas in the past, and I mean, I love opera, and it's often for me, because I'm very interested in the costume element, I feel that it enhances the character's personality, and to have the chance to do that here in Plymouth is exciting, because it's something that's not really been done here before, and I think it's a unique way to present the opera in Plymouth at the university.
What's the significance of making this opera at the University of Plymouth?
It provides a new experience for audiences who may have not seen an opera before. So it's a venue and a chance for general audiences to experience something that's not commonly seen in Plymouth. And I think doing it in this way with this involved language also is really unique, and I mean, with the visuals and the costumes and everything, bringing that all together really puts Plymouth, I think, at the forefront of creative design.